You know what I would like to do to the agency? Break it apart and scatter it to the winds.
The whole entire time I've been a targeted individual, I've experienced not only harassment in classrooms, job sites, on the road, in churches, grocery stores, where I shop, walk, bike, and fish. I have even received life threatening phone calls, and I've been harassed overseas. And one of the videos that I have in another country shows these people going to an embassy, which I find really weird. Now, check this out. New message. This was every freaking day, non-stop. And the same thing occurred in Texas. So I started utilizing quite a few different tools, not just cheesy little stingray detection apps. And I started finding out that my phone was being tracked by veterans, elderly veterans, and I documented this same exact pattern in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is here in Florida. I have weird videos here where I've been followed and harassed. So in Texas, these people would show up at places where I went to pay my rent, and they had no tag, and they were men in their late 80s, sometimes 90s. And these people would follow me on the road and go into stores and just stay on my tail. And then when I would leave, they would leave. It was real creepy. And you'll notice they don't have no tag. This certain vehicle right here was tracked down to an FBI facility the next day. So what's creepy about this is that you can go to police, and I've recorded it on video. Hello. And this is no joke. A Mel Barbie doll on a noose was put on my car with the word "spick" on it. And I went to the county attorney's office. They would not help me. And I even documented a police officer in the county where I live in on video altering police reports about my story. And I have the whole entire conversation on file. I have the same thing with the Austin, Texas Fusion Center. Police departments all throughout Texas are all doing the same thing. Now, why is this? Why are they lying? Well, they have to, because federal laws mandate that they can't expose these people even when they harass you every single day. In Texas, every day I bought food. Every day I was harassed. And I have video proof where you can actually see it. You just have to go down the rabbit hole and you'll find it, especially on my channel called City of Austin Video Files on that very last playlist. So I've gone through this even in schools like Lake Sumter Community College, for years, and nothing has changed. I did a Privacy Act request with the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm covering up my address, but you can see here it's from the CIA. And I haven't received a response back. So I was considering filing a complaint with the Federal District Court here in Orlando, Florida, concerning my Privacy Act request. But I recently found out that there's a statute of limitations. And this statute of limitations is like 2 years. So I've surpassed that. And they have this thing where you can't do an administrative appeal. But that may not change anything. So I have to actually do it again, and I'm going to mark my Privacy Act request also as a Freedom of Information Act request. So I'll do a search on the time frame I was being harassed to make it different for specific years, and then I'll also put down Freedom of Information Act concerning certain companies and if they have partnerships. So I'm putting it as a Privacy Act request and Freedom of Information Act request. Because when you do a Privacy Act request, they have no set time frame, but they do with the Freedom of Information Act request. And I try to go online to do it, and I can't. So after I think it's like 180 days, something like that, they close your account down. So I created a new one. It says your username exists, and it wouldn't let me access it even when I added a new password. Really weird. So I'm gonna file a Privacy Act request with the CIA through their, I'll go to one of these printer shops and just fax it, send it by fax. You can't do it by email. And if you do it by mail, it could just get trashed.
When I lived in Texas prior to moving here to Florida, I went to police over a house break-in, and my entire report was redacted. You couldn't even see my name on the report. I went to them over a few incidences at places where I walked and biked. The reports were blank, even at my doctor's office in a lobby. So I reached out to a relative which worked for the DEA in Puerto Rico that had a top secret clearance, and he mentioned that I was being targeted by the Central Intelligence Agency. After 5 years of daily harassment at places where I walked, ate food, doctor's offices, and so on, I decided to move here. And what's very interesting is that one of the people that was operating with the CIA worked at the local FBI field office. So I moved here to Florida thinking I would have a new start to get harassed all over again by veterans. They're referred to as disadvantaged veteran-owned businesses. One is located at the Small Business Opportunity Center. I noted Jewish people harassing me in every single state, and my cell phone would typically get extremely hot upon booting within a minute or two. I started noticing stingray tracking, and this has been state by state since 1996. So I'll share a few of my profile links here. My other channel is Exposing Corruption 2025. Keep me in prayer. I'm going to start reaching out to foreign governments and asking for help with political asylum. I've reached out to every federal agency. Nobody will do nothing, and there's no investigation towards these perpetrators. Just me. I want to be left the hell alone. So anyways, that's all I want to share, fellow TIs. I'm currently being denied medical treatment at 3 different places after these people came in wearing suits, and one of the cars has the CIA tag, and I've shared it in the past.
Hello, fellow targeted individual and American. Back in 2015, I was attending Gulf Coast Community College, and I had an encounter with a group that had the CIA logo.
and I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I took project management at Central New Mexico Community College in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then I moved to Texas, where I went to Cybertex to become a database administrator. And one day I was in the classroom and a student named Alvarado gave me a piece of paper with my social security number and all my personal information. My teacher had told me that the city of Austin was supporting my targeting. I'm like, what? And one day I drove to the class and I went to the wrong building. In that area, all the buildings looked 100% identical. And I walked into the emergency management office and I instantly recognized a lady that had been harassing me nearby my house. And she said, "You must be a student for that place across the street." So I drove over there. And I ended up leaving this school after weird incidents. So I hated it, but I went to this place for like about a month. It's a Goodwill Technical Training Center in Austin, Texas. And what was really weird was the first day I enrolled, some people wearing black suits came in. And when I went to my classroom, I would notice a black and white vehicle every day. It didn't matter where I parked, it would park next to my vehicle. And these people wearing black suits were told repeatedly to leave. And anytime I was up here and my teacher would ask me a question, the student would whistle one time really loud. And the students found it bizarre. It was nonstop. So I finished the program and I go to austinfree.net while I was working on a degree at home, and I was working on getting my CompTIA certifications. Weird things happened at the school to the point where it was so bad I had to go to the school board and leave the class. So now I live in Clermont, and recently I found a police report with the Clermont, Florida Police Department. Here's what's really bizarre. My doctor's office is right next door. It's the Florida Cancer Specialist. Let me see if I can get it. It's going to be like right around here. It is right here. It's this building right here. No, actually, no, my bad. It's right here. The Florida Cancer Specialist. And I was denied treatment. Then one day my family was like, let's go out and have some family time. Let's go enjoy ourselves. We go to the View, and some people in a black SUV walk up to me and my family. One walks up to us, he whistles and walks right out, and he gets into a black SUV parked next to my family. Even more bizarre, one day I was shopping with my family, and a black lady that's a member of Kiwanis walks up to me and my family, pats the kid on the back, and he walks up to us and whistles. They both walk out. The next time I go shopping there, I'm on where the 10th cashier is at, and a deputy, I see him walking wearing a green uniform and gold star badge, and he walks up to me and my family and just stares at us. Weird things started occurring at the gas station down the road from the school. Anytime I would arrive, the cashier would run out of the place and just stand at the door and whistle one time. The people that would come would switch cars if I came to the Chick-fil-A or anywhere around here. The list goes on. It's literally every single mile through this city, through this town, I can tell you of an encounter where I've been harassed while eating food. The people into these activities, based on targeting at times, will utilize innocent firefighters, innocent cops, good guys. The majority are good people, just like our troops. But just like you and me, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to live a normal, healthy life. Date, rent, raise a family, pay their bills, not bother a soul. And what the enemy wants to do is they want to drag you back, fellow TIs. They want to drag you backwards. So they go into your schools and say you're a terrorism threat. They go into neighborhoods and say you're a pedophile. They go into neighborhoods and slander you. They go into stores. I have videos where you actually see the same Jewish people arriving at the same place anytime, and they would go in there and slander me in the worst ways. So what they would do was they would create the situations necessary for false flags on a micro scale, and they conceal this under many
false titles like public engagement, community engagement, national security, homeland security. And they've recruited many vets. The majority of people that are involved in these activities here in Florida are going to be like veterans, corporations, associations. And some of these black ops contractors will go into doctors' offices. They'll go into lobbies. I've recorded in Texas, it was the local FBI field office. They had an FBI agent, and she would go to my doctor's offices. And then I would receive substandard medical treatment. They would drop people off on the corner streets where I walked at. So avoid living nearby military bases. Avoid living nearby FBI facilities. If you relocate to any place, make sure that you don't live within at least 20 miles of an FBI facility, because their protocol is to target targets that live in proximity to them. So you become a cash cow for InfraGard, for the Fusion Center, for Citizens Corps, for a Sheriff's Association, for a VFW, an American Legion, a Lions Club, a Rotary Club, a whole bunch of neighborhood watch groups tied to your Sheriff's Association, to a school teachers union of 10,000 members trying to raise money for community policing, a low-key youth preparedness group in your neighborhood. And then before you know it, you're being flagged by many different people, and that is essentially gang stalking, because it's a gang of people that are essentially, in their minds, they see it as surveillance, but the target doesn't know these people, and they view it as stalking, and that's how the average target would view it. Now, I avoid about 95% of targeted individuals. There's all types of crazy theories out there. I relate to people like Ted Gunderson, which worked for the FBI, Ernest Hemingway, Gene Seberg, what's her name, Anna Suda from like Helena, Montana. People like, what's his name? He was from Fresno, California. John Lang. John Lang was a whistleblower, and he was slandered later, and he was targeted. These are the types of targets that I can relate to. My channel promotes nonviolence, essentially awareness of threats. You'd be surprised what people will do for a defense contract. You're no longer considered a citizen when you're in this. You're just considered like a product. And people do this because an agency has said, you're this, you're that. They slap a label on you. Just like DHS whistleblower Julia Davis. She exposed things, and the FBI viciously targeted her, assaulted her family, got the U.S. Federal Marshals involved. What did the Department of Justice do? Nothing. Did it support her constitutional rights? Neither did police. They stayed out of this the entire time, knowing the threat that she faced. And they did this because the laws mandate, if it's an investigation, that there's no support. And this occurs nationwide. It becomes a shock for those that experience this, because they realize that going to police now is meaningless. Because when they go to cops, they say your matter is civil. When you're telling them you're being harassed on a daily basis by the same person that's clearly stalking you, and that clearly has an intelligence background, and that's not licensed as a private investigator, but as a defense contractor. So this makes it where the target now has to come up with money to hire an attorney. That attorney has to figure out how to find out who this employer is. That's going to be nearly impossible. And then Department of Justice by law, and the FBI and NSA and DHS and police and sheriffs can't do nothing. So this major loophole means that any American can lose their civil liberties and be denied life, liberty, and justice. Now, I would say a good 45% of targeted individuals after 20 to 25 years will all suffer from high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and severe anxiety. That's been a huge culprit in the TI community. Many targets die from chronic stress, from heart disease, heart attack, strokes, and many develop chronic health issues which oddly go away once they leave the United States and they find countries where they can experience some support from the system or the community. So when you look at threat assessments, when you look at courses involving counterterrorism and risk assessments, threat assessments, risk factors are no community support, mobbing, being bullied, complaints. Now, this is what's interesting. We have people that utilize this term threat-based, grievance-based threat. But here's what's interesting. How many of these so-called grievance-based threats have been helped by the same people that are doing these skits on you, in which are harassing you and your family? I guarantee you, zero. If we were to ask the Fusion Center or any member of law enforcement within the state of Florida or the state government, how many of these people have been helped by the FBI or InfraGard, I guarantee you, zero. So when you're targeted, you can provide evidence, but the evidence you provide will not lead to them being surveilled, but you. So what this does is when you complain about your targeting, now when you go back to your car, instead of just seeing one car there every morning for 5 years in that same spot, you may see 20 white cars with no tag. So the same people that are doing this are going to be the same people to investigate it. So now you can clearly see how it's really easy for these activities to lead to all types of events. So one thing's for certain, there are targets which are being harassed by defense contractors. There are targets which are being flagged in communities and harassed by people they don't know. Systematically, in some cases, where they walk, where they eat with their family, where they worship, where they fish, social events, airports, airplanes, even overseas. Now, some of this was reduced after the Quiet Skies program was shut down, but we have a federal agency within our government which is able to harass people at foreign airports, and they operate through embassies. If we can figure out who these people are that are bringing this into our schools, that are able to access law enforcement and promote narrative control, I believe that we will be able to crack the code when it comes as far as these programs. Because how the hell does somebody move from Austin, Texas to get harassed when they pass by this place called the Small Business Opportunity Center to go bike riding on a daily basis to be harassed by veterans once they pass by a certain area? It makes no sense. I gotta wash my car, so if you see bird poop, it's because my car is under a tree. So, our enemies, fellow TIs, they utilize decent people, they say horrible things about the target to persuade people to go along with this. And the best way to do this, I believe, after reading a book called Stalking by a private investigator, is to say that the target is dangerous, a pervert, likes children, uses drugs, a bunch of slanderous things, because that is what it takes to push people over the edge. You have retired veterans drinking beer, nothing else better to do, and you're a Latino driving around or fishing. Well, you're automatically viewed as being a threat because a defense contractor has come their way and has offered them a defense contract. Now, not everybody which drives a car with a U.S. government tag comes from a military installation. Many of these people are just regular Joes that are desperate for defense contracts, that are desperate to create a problem. Now, if you wanted to create a problem in a person's life, what would you do most likely? Well, you'd harass their family, right? You would harass them while eating. What better way to promote violence but by doing things when a person's buying food, shopping, taking a walk with their grandmother? This guarantees violence. So the people that we thought were against terrorism, all these so-called people involved in counterterrorism and national security, some of them have to know about these programs. Because when I look at these people's websites and I see we support national security and the Jewish Star,
What makes me wonder, where is our information going to? What nations is our information shared with? Because if it's shared with nations which believe it's okay to mass murder people, what do you think is going to happen here when people criticize what they're doing? This has nothing at all to do with anti-Semitism, fellow TIs. Just logic, because if people are being targeted by Jewish people or Christian organizations when they're a Christian, what this does is it changes a person's perception of life, where people can start viewing others as potential threats and hazards to their safety. And it can isolate people from a community, because now the municipality has to say, oh, it's a federal matter, we can't get involved. So this means the person is left in a situation where no fire department, no emergency management group, no member of Congress can solve, because we have a deep state apparatus which is operating outside of our laws. And as long as we have that, fellow TIs, we have a threat on our hands. And I'm not saying that the target is the threat. It's the people that are doing this. If the police can't arrest the contractors and have to redact their information when they're clearly committing crimes and mobbing people and harassing people at places where they buy food for their family, where they worship, that's not an investigation. So if the government can't take care of it, and if it requires hundreds of thousands of dollars to investigate and to sue, what do you think's going to happen in these cases? What we've seen on TV repetitively, repeatedly occurring. So they get away with this by outsourcing. Hold on one second, I got something in my eye. And they lie, slander the person as all these horrible things, make it where no federal agency or cops can intervene, especially our national security apparatus, DHS, fusion centers. So this means that in these types of cases, these people are a joke for us. They can't even uphold their constitutional rights. And you can be targeted by private security groups, mothers, teachers, people with secret clearances, and nobody can do nothing about it. Now, their pet peeve, fellow TIs, when I was in Texas, was parking next to my vehicle or following me into a store, not buying nothing, and they would do something at the front entrance or while I was on a certain aisle. They would just walk up to me, do a skit, and leave suddenly without stopping. And it was systematically occurring. Like, I could park my car over there, they may park over here, and then they would just confront and then get in a car and leave. And since they were utilizing many different people, it was never considered a crime, but it was systematic. And when I started running tags, these people came up as nurses, educators, members of civic groups, defense contractors. And this has impacted me since 1996.
So one thing I found very bizarre is the amount of people involved in like Antifa, diversity and inclusion, which have recently removed that verbiage from their websites, but which are utilized for contract opportunities. And this even occurs overseas. So you won't get any response back from like a CIA inspector general, Homeland Security, FBI, police, or sheriffs. So you're essentially left in a state where you're systematically harassed under the false guises of an investigation. Now, I've utilized multiple threat programs, which are based on threat models from our agencies. They're all saying that this activity is linked to mass shootings, and the CIA came up as 99% linked to these activities, along with contractors and other interagency partners. So I'm against violence. That's why I make these videos, because in my opinion, I'm exposing a credible terrorism threat to national security and homeland security. And from the videos, it shows these people going into our bases. It's showing these people outsourcing nearly all these operations that occur in U.S. schools and residential areas until somebody cracks and pops towards one of these contractors. So they have figured out ways to facilitate mass shootings all across the United States with no trace, under the false guises of national security. So we are dealing with a terrorism threat, in my opinion. And I'm gonna be quite frank. I'm saying my opinion. It's not what I believe. It's what I know to be true. God bless. Say no to violence. Say no to domestic terrorism. And if I declare political asylum and don't make any more videos, no, it's because I needed to move forward, and I encourage you guys to do the same thing. I have this thing that's referred to as a dead man switch. It's where if I don't click this button on my burner phone, it sends all my files. And it's jam packed with Jewish people, CIA assets, and it goes to different governments. And the reason why I set it up was because Department of Justice and no federal agency would investigate. So if anything ever happens to me, fellow TIs, know that my information will be put out there. And those that have it, the very few that I gave it to, make sure to send it to those agencies. God bless. Peace.
I've been a targeted individual for a long time. I've been living here in Florida for 7 years, and I lived in Austin, Texas for 5 years, and I have videos from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and where I grew up at in Northwest Florida most of my life. So I went to the city hall. I was targeted even afterwards. They did nothing. And I was harassed by children, members of the local FBI field office. I reached out to the constable. I found myself being harassed by first responders and even FEMA's Citizen Score program. They harassed me inside of stores and they did foot patrols around my house. I had issues with Medical Reserve Corps, volunteers in police service, Freemasons, a whole bunch of them. Elderly men were harassing me on a daily basis. And I was being harassed by Jewish people. And I had spoke to Mayor Steve Adler at that time and the city commissioner for the area that I lived in, Leslie Poole, that had a tremendous amount of information concerning harassment by Jewish people. And even the Fusion Center got involved. And at that time, the Austin, Texas Police Department was highly corrupt. They would not even answer anything concerning reports to their internal affairs. I went to Congress, I went to Senate committees, they harassed me at parks. I even documented harassment by a guy that works for a DHS under exemption, I think it's 6. I talked to the Texas State Committee, and it was all the time elderly people harassing me upon arrival to supermarkets. And even the FBI. So, what they would do was they would do this thing referred to as NLP. And they would show up, and it could be a bunch of white cars. And then I would notice bizarre stuff. They would just make their presence known. And let me go to the end. You'll see the FBI logo there. Uh, they weren't trying to stop terrorism or crime. They were trying to sensitize me and harass me. And even more bizarre was the amount of veterans. Bear with me one moment. Let me see if I can find it. It's at 1207. So, in every state that I've lived in, hold on a second. Let me see if I can expand it. If it'll let me, hold on a second. So, it's a CIA recruiting. This is for a job fair. So, they recruit national security partners. I have videos, fellow TIs, where I'm being shot at.
and where I've gone to a sheriff's department in Austin, Texas. They did nothing. I even have it recorded. People that work with DHS. Let me go to this one. This was one of my neighbors, and he would walk out of his house if I was seen, and he would just walk up to me and whistle, and then he would go back into his house. And he worked at one time for the Texas Environmental Commission, and he's listed as let me see if I can find it. It might take a moment. But anyways, he comes up. Let me see on.
Pursuit to B6, which is something you see under like the Department of Justice, especially Exemption 6, where they hold information.
It means classified. So I reached out to every inspector general, even Department of Justice. I even went to their office and they refused to help. They harassed me at parks, grocery stores, where I walked, where I biked. They used veterans, homeless veterans, staying with people on vouchers. I even went to the Department of Defense Inspector General to get harassed by elderly ladies that started showing up at stores and stuff. My computers were all the time going out. My cell phone, check this out.
Okay, today is January 3rd, 2018, and I'm having really strange issues. I have an unlimited data plan that I'm not paying for, and I've called approximately, my God, 12 times, and each time
Look what it says, 1,209.
I'm on the phone for an hour.
Unlimited service for like 3 years. I got rid of the phone. I could have used it for 3 years. Really weird. And the phone always got hot. I started getting harassed by my neighbors, and I found out they all have GSA profiles. And I was even harassed by Jewish people at places where I ate. And they would come with a group of like satanic logos. I started running VINs and finding out that a lot of these people had LinkedIn profiles and were defense contractors. And even the local police participated, like select partners. And when I went to police, they would put on my report classified or restricted, or they would black out the entire report. Well, I moved here to Florida and experienced the same thing. This is on a YouTube channel called the City of Austin Video Files, and it's on the City of Austin playlist at the very bottom of that channel. So let me share something else with you guys. I enlisted, hold on a second. This is when I talked to the Senate committee. Now I enlisted all these videos, but check this out, fellow TIs. Prior to moving, when I left Florida, the same day I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, this lady moved in across from my apartment, and my neighbors informed me that she was spying on my place. She was later busted breaking into my mailbox. She was later busted driving her car on a public sidewalk, following me around. And that same day that I moved in, a guy from Virginia threatened me about making videos about the World Trade Center, about Zim Israeli Shipping Company. Never made any accusations about this pen that I got from a World Trade Center relief worker. So if I can figure out who hired this lady, I believe we can figure out who's behind this gang stalking. Because the other one was from Langley, Virginia. And in 2003, I had another issue with somebody from Langley, Virginia. So there's something about Langley, Virginia and this targeting. Now, check this out, fellow TIs. This is a prayer request. I'm considered a top contributor. So, you see the post. But here's what's really weird. Let's go to the group. Now, look what it says. Pending approval. So, Facebook has it where when I would look at my stuff, I see that it's up. But when I go to the prayer group, it's actually pending approval. So that's their sneaky way of removing things. So Facebook is actually like a censorship mill, I believe, for the intelligence community. They're shadow banning me. So what this does is it prevents me from communicating with other people. So in all the groups that I join, I typically get a high ranking and I get a lot of followers. And the people behind this targeting, I believe, work with social media outlets. This makes it where I can't really have a good social life because now I'm even being censored on social media outlets like Facebook. Every day I face the prospect of entrapment. I could be shot, I could be killed. I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up one morning and my brake lines were cut and my brake pads were missing. So I just want to let TIs know that I had new lines installed again and new brake pads that come with the lifetime warranty. So they should last at least a year, my lord. And I'm thinking maybe I should just declare political asylum. I don't have any type of suicidal tendencies. I don't use drugs. These people, though, I can see how they would do these things to push people to drink and to have a messed up marriage and a messed up life. They want to judge you by your past or something you said that offended them. Maybe you don't agree with their perverted agenda. And they utilize, at times, Israelis. They utilize elderly veterans. I've noticed this all through my early 20s, all through my 30s, all through my 40s. The same pattern. Harassment by elderly veterans when I least expect it. Harassment by elderly women. Women that are typically always ex-U.S. Army, and they just come and harass you, then leave. And then the next day it's somebody else. Then the next day it's somebody else. And then you go to police and they say, oh, we can't get involved, and the reports are always restricted or redacted, classified. And it makes it where you feel like you're just wasting your breath. So what the enemy wants to do is they want to exhaust you emotionally to the point where you react and you go out and do something stupid towards those that are doing this. And one thing I noticed was they use neighbors. Now, I'm a nonviolent person. I don't hurt people. I've been in this since 1996, and the only thing I've done is ask for help, not to be followed, but for communication. Let's do a joint operation, whatever, with other targets. Let's bust these people. But you're not going to find cops or any agency willing to do that, because if there's not any type of cooperation or communication, then this will continue, especially if these people have immunity and they're outsourcing to contractors. Cops, police chiefs, sheriffs are going to take the word of these people. So now I'm in a situation where I'm pushing close to 50. I don't have any kids. I've left every school that I've attended over threats of car bombings, stabbings. This has been going on since my 20s to my late 40s. And I'm right now working towards another degree at home. If I go to a library, I'm harassed by somebody that's ex-military or a contractor or active duty. If I take walks, I'm documenting bizarre stuff, getting harassed on the bike trail by people that are harassing me in the same exact manner I was harassed at a mall while shopping with my family and just eating pizza. So they try to make it where you don't enjoy your life. They just want you to react. So these have to be the most suicidal and terroristical people on our soil, because who in their right mind would bring this into schools, supermarkets, parking lots, churches? So I have no choice but to look for another country. because it's no longer safe for me to be here. It's no longer healthy. So perhaps I have to reach out to Congress to do a congressional inquiry so they can investigate my matter. And if I have to go to court, I'll request a special master